In this video, we'll be doing a case study of Meetup and Eventbrite. These two products seem to be offering same sort of services and features, and I wanted to go and check why do they exist and what makes them different, what makes them similar. I have been using Meetup and Eventbrite quite regularly these days, and whenever I have to go for an event, I'm likely to book an event either on Meetup or Eventbrite. I always used to wonder what is the difference between these two applications. They seem to be serving the same need for the user. Basically, you want to attend an event and you want to book an event. Now, I was looking at these two companies and trying to understand what was their product strategy because both are playing in the same field. However, there are some small differences and nuances that reflects in their product design and also in the user experience when you start using these products. Let's talk about Meetup and Eventbrite. I went through a trend report published by Eventbrite, and two things stuck out to me from there. One of the things that they mentioned is attendance at micro events grew by 23%. More than 54% of consumers are more likely to go to an event that's trending locally, and 80% of them are willing to pay more for tickets. Now, this was an interesting thing because if you notice, Eventbrite and Meetup have a slight distinction in the sense that Meetup is focused on small groups you meet somewhere locally, and Eventbrite was probably for like large groups. And in 2024, we start seeing a trend where people want to meet more and more locally. And so Eventbrite is also tending towards the same strategy of Meetup, which is cater to this local groups audience. On the other hand, here's Meetup's data. So in 2019, they had 10 out of 10 events focused on tech and career. And then in 2022, they started seeing 5 out of 10 events focused on friendships and connections. This was very interesting to note because we know there was a pandemic in between. And from 2020 to 2022, we saw that a lot of people were striving for that human connection more and more as people got closed up in their houses. So this trend eventually matches with what Eventbrite is also seeing. So somehow these two platforms, although they initially served a different type of audience, are sort of converging towards the same idea that people want to meet in small local groups. There's an advantage to this of having a small focused group where people can connect meaningfully. Imagine going to a conference where there are like thousands of people. Even if you want to network with people, you will find it slightly difficult to go ahead and build connections with everyone. Compare that to a small meetup happening in a cute cafe somewhere. You are more likely to have engaging and meaningful conversations. Personally speaking, from my experience, I started attending a lot of meetups here in Amsterdam. And when I first moved here in 2022, I wanted to look for my kind of people who are interested in technology, product management, everything related to UX. And so I quickly started finding out events that are catering to my needs. However, I stayed away from these large conferences or large seminars where like hundreds of people come and I don't get to connect with anyone meaningfully. Also, notice how 71% of events occurring in Meetup are in person. The reason to know these data points is because you have to design products according to your audience and the users that are coming to the application. Imagine a person is looking for a small group, but you keep showing them large conferences. They are probably not going to be interested. So your event discovery, event details, and everything around booking an event should cater to the kind of audience that is coming on the platform. So with this in mind, I wanted to focus on three main things in this video. The first one is the onboarding journey for both Meetup and Eventbrite. The second part is the discovery of new events. How do I find new event that is relevant to me? And the third part is the booking experience of an event. So let's get started with the first part, which is onboarding journey. I'm on my Miro board where I have taken all the screenshots of the onboarding journey on Eventbrite. We'll go through the Eventbrite's onboarding journey and then we'll go through the Meetup's onboarding journey. We can then go ahead and compare and contrast the onboarding journeys of both the apps. Now, what I have got here is the web version of signing up and getting started with Eventbrite. Now, the first screen that you reach is right after you have completed that sign up flow. Eventbrite offers you a choice for attendee versus organizer. So if you're an organizer, you have a different flow, and I posed myself as an attendee. So I had to click on this one and then go ahead. Now, as soon as I click on attendee, I get to the next screen where I'm asked to set up my location. So on this screen, all I can see is option to select my location. And then they have given me an explanation that why we need this location. For an event product, it makes sense that you need the location of the person to show you relevant events. And then after this, they have asked me for my interests. Now, in this view, if you notice here, we have multiple categories. So you have like music, business, and then there's also option for food, drink, and a lot of other categories that you can choose from. Honestly, from a first user experience perspective, it may not sound that cluttered or that exhausting, but you do realize that very quickly that some of these interest and classifications that have been provided are way too many. So you're probably just searching for the most relevant one. For example, just look at this business section. I can see that they have startups and small business, investment, other, media, design. Now, even if you do not find the most relevant, you have to choose the next most relevant to your liking. So it makes sense that they ask you for the interest because that helps the algorithm to give you a better result when you look for the next event. And I do wish that the interest section was improved a little bit more. After I have selected the interest, I get it highlighted as the orange bright color here. So you can see that when I selected these three options, they become quite bright red orange. So it's very nice to visually separate what you have selected versus what is just a plain choice. And after you have selected an interest, you go to the organizer's recommendations. Now, these are the two recommendations I got. I don't know if either of them are very, very relevant to me. At least the Agile Visor was not relevant at all. But it is possible that in the past, I may have shown an interest in this one. I have no idea for a new account, how do they get this information? But I did not find these two suggestions to be most relevant according to me. And so what I did is just basically clicked on finish. I did not follow them. It seems to be an optional step. And one thing I noticed as a user is whatever is happening on the left hand side, I very rarely read the small text. And I only look at the big headline, which is follow organizers. And probably I will just say skip. And once I've selected my organizer's recommendations, or probably not, I go to the event discovery page. Now, in the event discovery page, this is screen 6. So it took us about 5 screens altogether to land on this particular page, which is right after sign up till the first landing page in my dashboard or let's say home experience of this particular app. On this page, observe how Eventbrite has given you most relevant information according to them. Now, of course, as you refine your interest, your results might get better, but it is not a blank page at least. So you can go ahead and see all the events here. So that was Eventbrite. Let's go see the meetup experience. Now, in the meetup, the experience was very, very different from what I initially thought of. So let's go ahead and check this. Right after I gave my email ID, I got asked the name, age, location. Now, this is a screen where I'm entering this information. Age was particularly interesting to me because this is not something that Eventbrite explicitly asked. It is possible that events cannot be attended unless you're 18 or older. I'm not sure what is the requirement for this, and I'm not sure if it's needed on this screen to be present. That was a bit odd for me in Meetup's case. And then what happens is you go to the next page, which is selecting interest. Now, interest screen also is kind of similarly cluttered as compared to Eventbrite. The only difference I see here is they have collapsed the category heading. So for example, you have social activities, travel, outdoors, etc. And then when you click on it, it will expand to show you all the subcategories. So this is where I feel both the products have a challenge of classifying what kind of interest and likes people have. So it's very difficult problem to solve, by the way. It's not easy. I'll talk about it a bit later. But this is what I see when I expand. So I can select these two. One thing I already like about Meetup is they recommend me some popular interests. So whatever is currently going on, they may not be relevant. I don't know how they can actually make it relevant for the first time user, but I'm guessing this is based on their existing data. I went ahead and selected my interest. And once you select an interest, it gets highlighted at the bottom here, but it also shows up at the top. And I feel this was a nice touch compared to Eventbrite. At least you could see and you don't have to keep scrolling up and down. And this is screen number 3. And then we move on to the next one, which is recommendations. Now, in the recommendations, they give you a lot more choices than what I saw in Eventbrite. And although I did not select anything, I just clicked on next. You do have a choice to go ahead and check the recommendations right away. And after I have selected this, I went on the next screen, which is screen number 5. Now, in screen number 5 is where I got my surprise because I'm just starting out as a new user. I have not even seen the product, I have not even experienced the product, and I'm getting a model to go ahead and upgrade for their next paid plan. So I feel like if you have a free plan, so let the user continue on that free plan, and at some point later on, after they have interacted with your product, let's say a little bit, then you can go ahead and upsell it. But at this point, it felt kind of pushed, and obviously, I'm looking for this free plan or continue for free, etc. And I clicked on that. So I feel this was an unnecessary screen for a first time user. And then once I click on it, I get to the next one, which is feedback modal. I have no idea when software products started doing this, but during the onboarding journey, if you're going to ask users so many things, these are at least 2 things here. There are products which ask endless questions during the onboarding, and person has not even tried the product yet. So what I would recommend is not to have these questions at all in the first time, and then ask them later on maybe. And then once I see that, I get to screen 7, which is a submit success. And finally, I land on my homepage. Now, this homepage at first glance looks empty compared to what Eventbrite did. And this is where I started to see the stark contrast between the product experience of both the apps. As you can see, I absolutely see nothing. There is some data to be shown to the user, but I come and you see no upcoming events. Now, if you're a first-time user, you have to keep in mind that the first-time user may come with an intent or without an intent. If they have come without an intent, in that case, you do want to show your meetups or promote something internally and show something that they can go ahead and check it out. Now, here's a trick. I actually clicked on suggested events, which is right here. And that's when I started to see all these events. So the landing page of this application, in my opinion, could be different. And it should have been some default search results, just like Eventbrite did. So let me give you just quick comparison notes between the two apps. First and foremost thing, I feel Eventbrite has got the shortest path to the results page. So they do not have a lot of questions, and they have just 3 questions, totally 5 screens, and you are on the event discovery page. Whereas in Meetup, I felt they had 2 unnecessary points. One is the upgrade or upselling their pro plan, and second one is the feedback modal, asking me where I got it from. Second thing that I found quite odd is that reaching the results page in Eventbrite was quite interesting. I actually could see all the events, even if they are not super relevant to me right now. They at least gave me some results. Compare that to a blank page that I land on in meetup.com. If I were to pick tiny UX things, I would definitely reconsider this age thing, because the age consent could be baked into terms and conditions. And there is no way of verifying whether you are actually 18 years old or not. It's just an explicit way of collecting it. And the second thing is the way you collect the interest. Now, in interest, if you notice, both the apps have the same challenge. There are too many categories and too many interests. I'll talk about this interest and how they become a challenge a little later. We just went through the onboarding journey. Let's do the second part. The second part is discovery of new events. New event discovery can happen in 2 ways. First way is you have a direct link to that event, and the second way, you are about to discover new events on the platform. Now, talking about the first way, you basically get a link somewhere on LinkedIn, social media, someone shares it with you, and that's a direct event link. If you click on that link, you directly land on their platform, and when you're about to book an event, you are probably nudged to sign up, and once you sign up, you can go ahead and book that event. The second type is where you want to discover new events. Now, this can typically happen to a person who has a lot of free time, wants to attend events to network, moved cities, just like me when I moved from India to Amsterdam. There are several features an event platform can offer. I'm looking at very few important features. First is searching for an event. Second, searching for an event from an organizer you follow. Third is saving an event. And fourth is booking an event. Along with this, we'll also look at how the event details are shown to the user and what kind of filters are available when I'm doing the search on these platforms. And lastly, we'll look at post confirmation notifications. Do I get an email? Do I get to see the details after I have booked an event? And what is that experience like? I'm on eventbrite.com, and let's go ahead and take our first task, which is to find a new event. If you were to look for a new event and you come on a page like this, what you're typically looking for is what kind of events are happening around me. And so here, this is the landing page of eventbrite.com. In this case, you can go ahead and browse events in Amsterdam. You have a section for you, which is based on your interest. You can click on all. So there are a lot of filters on this section here. The filters, however, do not make a lot of sense for me. And I'll tell you why. So they have this online, which is type of an event. So either it's in person or online. And then they have time-based filter, which is today or this weekend. And then they have price-based filter, which is free or paid. So the filters do make sense, but they also have some category-based or interest-based filters. So I feel there is a lack of coherence in terms of filters, in the sense either you're allowing me to choose the time or you're allowing me to choose a category or something. But this is interesting because they may have some data on what is the most searched. Nevertheless, I use this page for generally scrolling down. So I will go ahead and see if there is anything that is relevant to me. Now, in the For You section is where I'll be most interested in. Remember, in my onboarding journey, I had selected startups and businesses as my interest in Eventbrite. And so here I would see mostly around that. So for example, monthly meetup payments association, or we have this publishing house, which is more of business style or towards the startup scene. I do find these events to be more relevant than I expected. I also like the fact that they have this option of free. So the discovery of new events can happen here on the landing page, but also you have an option to search for events here. So let's say I want to search business and I click on search here. It takes me to a completely different UI. Now, observe how the filters move on to the left hand side here. And in the filters, now you have the categories like business, food and drink, etc. Is the same filters which were there in the mishmash format on the landing page. So they have a different approach to searching with an intent and searching without an intent. And so you have like a filter by date. Here you have more options. So you can look for today, tomorrow, etc. Same with price filter. I can see the free events and paid events. Then you have format everything else. And also they have a map view on the events. So in case you want to see where exactly it is. So that was searching an event on Eventbrite. Let's look at meetup.com. Now in meetup.com, as soon as you land on this page, as I mentioned in onboarding journey, if you do not click suggested events, or don't take it on, then you just don't get any results like that. So you have to click on suggested events. Now these events are suggested based on the interest you provided them. And they also listed down somewhere here your interests. So startup businesses, technology, and software development. Now these are the interests that are listed here. And then you can go ahead and see if anything is relevant. So for example, I can see that the events are quite relevant. Some of the events are not too relevant. This is what I've noticed in the time that I have used Eventbrite and meetup.com. The meetups events are relevant only when you follow organizers, and they're pretty good in that case. I guess in that case, you don't really need any relevancy. But when you click on suggested events, they kind of go crazy. They also have the feature for searching an event. So let's say I type business here, just like I did in Eventbrite. My location is still the same, and then I see this result page. Now observe how the filters are at the top here. So I can see by day, by type, and distance category. Distance is an interesting one. I did not see that distance in Eventbrite. Let me go check. I don't think I could filter by distance here. So distance was a new one. And in Meetup also, I see an app and pretty standard format of finding new events. Now, the next feature that I'm looking for is the event details. Now, that is where most of the things happen. So typically when I'm looking for an event, it will be like a free event that I'm interested in, and I want to know the details as much as possible. So let's compare the event details cards. And by cards, I mean when you highlight on this particular event. So let's take an example here. If I click on this particular event, it highlights that entire thing as a card. It's the same experience, but a little different. important in this Meetup app as well, where you can see the event details card, but they don't have that in the same UI design. And the most important thing to look for in an event is that, of course, what the event is about. So you want to find that out in the first glance, and you don't want to skim through a lot of data. So both the applications in that case have highlighted the title. So what is the event about? Where is it happening and when is it happening? So that's also important, which is present in Eventbrite. The location, observe how this is just Amsterdam, but here you get to see the location equals Amsterdam. So equals Amsterdam is a place just like Start Doc co-working space. So these are all the names of the venue, right? So the venue name. And then you have price. If it is a paid event, you are given the price over here. Comparing that to Meetup, now in Meetup, I found this a little different. I think their approach towards an event is very different from what Eventbrite is doing. So here I can see that the title is there, so that's still the attention grabbing thing in this card. So you do get to see the time when it is happening, so that part is clear. Now what is very interesting here to see is venue is not very clear, and for venue you would have to click on it. For example, the tech makers, this is actually the organizer's name. So if I go down, I can see that tech makers is the organizer of this event, and the address is somewhere here. So Outskans 85 would have been the venue address. Now this is different from the event details card in Eventbrite. Here you get to know the address instead of the organizer's name. Let's say I click on this event. As I go down here, I get to see that the organizer is base, but I nowhere saw that name over here, unless you see that in an image, which is a thumbnail set up by the organizer themselves. Now, that's the difference where the organizer is not the most important thing, but in Meetup, the organizer information is more important than the location itself. So that is something that I found very different. So notice how meetup.com does not show the price. So I'm here on this event, which is LGBTQ plus speed dating. So when I click on this event, I get to see the price over here, which is 25 euros. But when I'm on that search result page, I don't get to see what is the price. And I found this quite odd and a very big difference between Eventbrite and meetup.com. When I'm on Eventbrite, I can even filter the events by the price. So if I want to see only free events, I can do that, and I can search for free events as well. So the discovery of events is much better on Eventbrite compared to Meetup. In my opinion, Meetup might work much better if you already follow some organizers, but if you are looking to discover new events, you might be better off here. Now, the next thing I look for in an event platform like this is to be able to save the event. Both the applications have that option. So in here, Eventbrite, I can go ahead and click on this icon here, and that saves it. And I can also see these likes. So when I click on likes, I think that event will appear here, which is similar to what Meetup also has. They call it as save. So let's say if I click on save here, I can go and check that in your events. And here is where I see saved. It is a bit difficult to find at first. I like how Eventbrite has given right at the top. So it's at the top menu, whereas in Meetup, you have to really search for it. And it is somewhere hidden in your profile, which you go to events, and then in events, you go to saved. So there's a bit of a friction in order to reach your saved events or liked events. Both the applications have different experiences on mobile applications. I might do a different UX case study on the mobile applications, but here today I'm trying to stick to the web applications only. Now that we have seen how the discovery of new events works in these two apps, let's go ahead and check the next thing, which is booking an event. Now, booking an event should be kind of straightforward in both the applications. If it's free, you are able to simply book it without making any payment. And if it is paid, then you are able to just use your credit card and make the payment right away. So let's see the booking experience on both applications. So I chose one event called Monthly Meetup April Payments Association Netherlands. And I can see that they have an option to reserve a spot, which is a free event. So if I want to cancel, I can do that. Let's go ahead and see what happens if I click on reserve spot. In this case, they ask me to confirm the details. So I have to give my contact information, and let's say I enter all this information here and I click on register. So it gives me a summary of the payment. So even if it is zero, it is very important to show that in the checkout. Even if you're doing a free sell, it's important to do it this way, because unless you have a different flow altogether. Now here what I can imagine is the checkout experience is consistent for all types of events. So they may not want to optimize for free versus paid, Most likely because most of their events could be paid. So here it's important to see that this is a $0 or €0 payment. And then I click on register. The CTA register is something that I would definitely change because you are trying to book an event or pay for an event. And this is the information that the organizer needs. Now, here is where you can add, let's say, ABCD and some job title, let's say product manager. Of course, this is going to look like a fake event, but this is how you can complete the order. Fantastic. So now that I have completed this order, I can go to my tickets. So this information is required when you actually end up at the event. Now here I have an option to download the tickets or cancel order. Let's see the same experience on Meetup. I'm on an event page in Meetup. This is the accessible banking event. And here I have an option to go ahead and click on attend. I have an option to share as well. And I can see that this attend CTA, which is pretty clear in that sense. And which topic would you like to be discussed? So let's say accessibility. And you're bringing anyone? No. And then you go ahead and click on submit. This is a success page. So it says you are going, there is an event happening on 27th March, accessible banking, and then you can add it to calendar. You can also edit your RSVP. Let's compare this event confirmation page. Now here I see that you are going to an event and I only see this thing, add to calendar and share. There's nothing else on this page. Whereas on Eventbrite, I get a QR code, I get information. So it might depend on the organizers, but also the approach that both applications have taken. Eventbrite was probably looking at large events which are typically paid, and there you need confirmation, and that is where you probably need those QR codes. Meetup, on the other hand, was probably focused on small groups, and that's why they didn't feel the requirement for it. So here I can see that you can simply add it, and I can also see the events here in my Your Events, and I can see it's attending. If I click on it, I probably just go back to the event page here. Now let's quickly talk about the post-event confirmation notifications. Both apps do a fairly good job in giving you a confirmation via an email. Email confirmation is really a good touch to your product experience because it gives a sense of confirmation to the user if they, let's say, miss something on an app and they would like to have it on their email. On Eventbrite, when I see this email, I get all the details that are required to attend that event. The same thing for Meetup notification as well. Both applications do a very good job in giving you confirmation of an event that is booked. That was the third part of our case study today. If you notice any big differences between these two applications, do let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. I had fun checking out these two applications, and that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.